Well, welcome everyone. It's good to see you all. This has been amazing so far. I hope you're all having a really good time so far. I have been writing furiously. I've been taking lots of notes, and I've been learning a lot. And this has been really, really delightful. I'm humbled and I'm honored to be part of this group of brilliant educators from all over the world. Holy smokes! I just want to say thank you for making this happen and for all your contributions. This has been really great. I guess I'll start with just a brief introduction of who I am, and then we'll kind of move into an introduction to this section, and then to the presenters. So my name is Clark Goldsberry. I live in Utah in the USA, and I'll be the host of this session. I'm an art teacher and an artist. I teach at a secondary high school, and I'm also an adjunct professor at a university. At the high school, I teach AP art and design and photography. And at the university, I teach a course that investigates the collisions of technology and pedagogy and art making. Just a few reminders before we jump into this section. Please mute your microphones and feel free to chime in at any point with questions or comments in the chat function. Us presenters will do our best to respond to those questions and comments as we go along. And we'll have time for a formal Q&A at the end. So if you have questions as we go along, please don't forget to write them down so that we can go over them at the end. The theme of this session is move, and each speaker will be sharing projects that involve an element of motion or physicality. While every single project included in the Wicked Arts assignment book invites participation, these projects may require a little more physical exertion. They may also require quick improvisation using materials that you have around you in your personal scene of constraint, wherever you may be. This theme of movement feels really curious right now in this moment, in the middle of a global pandemic where movement is restricted on a global and local scale. Thinking about movement kind of fills me with melancholy. I'm sure there are many of us who wish we could be moving a little bit more in our worlds right now. But there are also reasons to be hopeful, and I think there are ways to move within and through these constraints. And I think this symposium is a great example of that, of us moving within and through these constraints of restricted movement. I also think that these presentations in the session will offer a few other ways out of these moments of restricted movement. There will be 3 speakers in this session. We had 4 originally, but one of them had to back out, sadly. The first speaker will be Andrea Aplasti. I hope I'm saying that right. Please correct me if I get it wrong. Okay. And she'll be followed by Shteda Burkamp. Please also correct me if I get that wrong. And then I'll be the last speaker after you two. And after all 3 of us, we'll have a Q&A forum, and you can ask us anything that you'd like. So with that, I think we are ready to begin. I'll formally introduce Andrea. Andrea Aplasti is a visual artist and lecturer at the Department for New Media Art at the Academy of Art in Novi Sad, Serbia. She works across artistic, pedagogical, and curatorial boundaries, concentrating on issues of cultural geography, history, and the everyday life. Also, if you have your book with you, her assignments are listed on pages 192 and 193, and 218 and 219, and I'll put those in the chat as well. Okay, Andrea, it is all you.
Thank you very much. I will share my screen so we can see the presentation. I hope it's working.
Yes.
Yes, super. So I teach theory of form and elements of visual arts to first-year university students at the Academy of Arts in Novi Sad. And beside these official university programs, I always tend to find some ways to develop new environments outside the university context. So in collaboration with the students, we created the gallery Kiosk, which was an ad hoc exhibition space from a former exchange office, and the idea was to exchange artworks. We also got the opportunity to take over the Theater 34 notice board, and instead of the repertoire of their performances, because they are not working during the summer, we published photographic works every Thursday of the week. It was some kind of a one-work gallery space. In cooperation with the athletic gymnastic club called Partizan, we also built a gallery space from one of their dressing rooms. So the idea was to bring art closer to the public. When you are going to training, you could jump in for an exhibition, or also parents who were waiting for their children could enjoy an exhibition instead of waiting in their cars. So to jump for the project Home Workouts, it was a collaborative project that I did with the students of the Academy of Art, and it is still a work in progress. Which consists of different single workouts, which are conceived as creative exercises and workout routines, like in a sport, that can be easily achieved with minimal equipment, minimal time, I would say also minimal effort, and can be performed at home or from home. Together with the students, we mostly used email correspondences, and we distributed these tasks between us. And once a year, we also organized exhibitions. It was, the exhibitions are envisaged as a documentation center or an archive for these works. So basically the idea of being instructed and also giving instructions is something I bring from my home, my everyday life. My mother was a fantastic instructor. During our childhood, she would instruct us how to pose, how to smile. She photographed more than thousands of photographs of me and my brother during our growing up, until I finally left home and went to become a photographer. She lost her model, but I also took her camera with me. When I finally finished the school, I gave her back the camera. I didn't need it anymore. I became a professor. But she was disappointed in a way because nobody is left to photograph anymore. And I made a joke, why wouldn't you take pictures of my father? After 3 weeks, she wrote me an email to come to pick up the negatives, and she was really bored. She said she will give up photography because my father is always at the same place with the same face. But eventually she did managed to catch something very similar to her predecessors. So also this idea of instructing, Yoko Ono was among the first artists to experiment with the notion of invisibility, to be more precise about not to have a physical object, but to imagine a picture in our minds. And my mother didn't like when her instructions stayed in my mind. She would make these beautiful collages. They were some kind of alternative shopping lists, just because she knew that I'm a visual type, and not to forget what I need to buy her. So these instructions come from an autobiographical point of view. And this was our, how to say, way to practice the closeness, or even to say to practice the family. And based on these experiences, now, as an artist teacher, I decided to incorporate this kind of instructions into the curricula. And based on, of course, the history of art, Fluxus art, Fluxus events course, conceptual art, but also this do-it-yourself aesthetics, we would give each other short-term assignments without conceptual or technological constraints, without this pretension of being something very good piece of work. The idea was to think fast and to do it fast. Just as we are exercising our muscles in home workouts, I use this sport terminology to work out the creativity, to stay fit creatively. And during 3 years, there were more than 250 students participating in these workouts, and I would love to thank them all that they worked out with me. I would show you some of the workouts that we did. It was, for example, destroy an unnecessary object. Hide someone. Or make an exhibition. Of course, you had to make it in your house at home. Throw something in the air, which I stole from Baldessari. Fill in a space, or find a mistake. Follow a line, or blow up something. Wrap it up, or leave a message. There was also a workout, make something that holds something on 3 legs. It was more abstract. Make a slide. I have to say there were lots of cats. Make a fountain. And I like to think of these little workouts as low resolution tangible objects through which we can practice the notion of thinking with hands. It was very important to me to have this physicality of it. And maybe one day someone can make some more meaningful objects or ideas as well. The last exhibition was held this year in January at the Gallery Suluv in Novi Sad, just before the pandemic. And we didn't even imagine that these home workouts could become a good survival kit during our lockdown. So I really look forward for the new workouts. And I would love to thank you. And my father, who is giving you a smile. Basically, it was the first time that he noticed the camera. Maybe it was too fast, but I hope you could follow up.
Andrea, that was excellent. Wow, wow, wow. I'm excited to look back at your presentation and spend more time with it. Those are some excellent projects. Thank you.
I wanted to put in some biographical notes as well, just to put me in a narrative.
I'm sure this question will come up at the forum later, but is there a way that we can access those slides, or are you sharing them with people?
If there is a chance to upload it here in Zoom, yes. I never did it, but yeah, let me check.
Yeah, just from the organization, we're going to ask all the presenters to, if we can share their PowerPoints, and all the sessions are being recorded, and everything will be on the website later.
Super.
Perfect. Okay. Andrea, thank you very much. That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Okay, our next presenter will be Shteda Burkamp, and she is an art teacher in secondary education for children with special needs. She takes an interest in social art, street art, and activism in art. In her classes, she uses art to talk with students about the world and to provide them with ways of expressing their own ideas. Her assignment can be found on pages 152 and 153 of the book. And just a reminder to make sure you have your microphones muted if you aren't Shteda. Okay, Shteda, it's all you.
Thank you, Clark. Hi, everyone. Before I continue, I would like you to grab, take like a few seconds to grab a piece of paper and a pen, something to write with. And the paper has to be loose. So if you're ready, please hold it up. I thought because this is the move block, we would start with actually doing something. Okay, great. I think everyone's ready. I would like you to think about a moment when you were feeling angry. And it can be like super furious or a little bit irritated, depending on yourself. And if you have a moment, then write it down in one word. And don't worry, you won't have to share it. It's going to be totally private, but just write down one word about anger. And when everybody's ready, I will count to 3. And on 3, I would like you to destroy your paper in any way. You ready? Okay. 1, 2, 3, go. Yeah, that was amazing. Okay, so my name is Shteda Burkamp. I'm from Amsterdam. And today I would like to tell you something about my art assignment about anger. And you have just been a part of a really quick Zoom Dadaist art performance. And I hope it bubbled up some of the energy that I try to get my students into when we're working on this assignment. I will share my screen later, but first I want to tell you something about how I came up with this assignment, because the seed for it was actually planted already a couple of years ago. I had a quite unpleasant experience, and if you're a teacher, especially if you're teaching to kids, you may be able to relate to this. It has to do with unreasonable parents. They had been invited to school because they had sent a couple of very emotional emails. So the headmaster decided to invite them to school so we can have a conversation about it. And there had been some incidents involving their son. And during this conversation, I found out they blamed everything on me. And they made a lot of accusations the whole time. They were completely unreasonable during the whole conversation. And I was trying all the time to stay super professional and being a good listener and not showing any emotion. And then at some point they just stormed out and the headmaster was going after them. But right before he went after them, he looked at me really worried and asked if I was okay. And he meant if I was going to cry. And I wasn't going to cry, but I wasn't okay either because I was really, really, really angry. So I told him, I'm not okay. I just want to smash something. I'm so angry. And he said, oh, okay, but that's fine. Anger is good. And I don't know about you, but I think maybe that was the first time I had ever heard someone say that to my face, like anger is good. And yeah, it's not an emotion that we really associate with a lot of positive things. It's associated with war and aggression and pain and fights. And we also don't really like to feel it because it can be so overwhelming and it can make us feel completely out of control, which is something most of us don't really enjoy. but it's also very, very strong emotion, and one that can fire up our whole body and our mind. So that's why I thought it was interesting to do something with this emotion related to art. I'll try to share my screen now. Yes, there we go. Many artists have used their anger to make artworks, works of protests, but also works that deal with anger in a slightly different way, more about destruction. And the work that sparked my imagination specifically and led to this Wicked Art assignment was this work by Doug Aiken, the American artist Doug Aiken, and the work is called The Garden. It was exhibited in a darkened warehouse, and as you can see, it consists of a jungle of living plants, and in the middle there's a room with very bright lights and generic furniture, and every time there's one visitor allowed in at a time. And when that person is invited in, he is also invited to destroy absolutely everything in the room. Now, take a minute to imagine what that would evoke in you. I know that depending a little bit on my day, I know what I would do, especially after parent-teacher night. And so we see a visitor smashing everything to pieces. He's filmed with 4 cameras and he's live streamed all over the world. And the interesting thing is that the plants outside are safe, but the man-made furniture has no chance. So it's also, of course, asking questions about our relationship as humans to the world and our destructive presence on Earth. But at the same time, it's relating, we can all relate to this relief, this feeling of relief after smashing something when we are really angry. So the assignment I created after this is make an object that represents something that makes you angry and make a short film that shows its destruction. And the school I work with, as Clark said, is a high school for students with special needs. And they have more than enough reasons to be angry. First of all, puberty is kicking in. Their body is growing in every direction. There's hormones all over the place. There is friend trouble, parent trouble, love trouble. Most of my students have autism, which doesn't exactly make understanding all of this any easier. And on top of all of this, the world around them is on fire. So I usually start this assignment by having a conversation with them about anger. What makes them angry? And I have them making an anger top 10. Make a list of 10 things that make you angry. And here is a list of some of the things that they have named. My little sister has ADHD and I have autism. I needed to be quiet after school, but she's always jumping around and screaming, so I don't get any rest. I get angry when I make a mistake, when people are unfair, when things aren't perfect, COVID, face masks, Windows 8, Donald Trump, mosquitoes, if something isn't symmetrical, that nobody does anything about climate change, and we are here and we have to live on the planet when we grow up. The differences between rich and poor. When the little eraser on a pencil is getting too small to erase things with. The last bit of Nutella in a jar because it's impossible to get it out. So after discussing a couple of artworks related to art and destruction and making drawings and deciding on a theme for their own work, they collect materials that are otherwise disposed of to make their to-be-destructed artwork. And we use things like cardboard, broken plates, old clothes, plastic, stuff like that. It doesn't really matter what it is, as long as it would be thrown out anyway. And one thing that happens with an assignment like this is it gives a feeling of freedom. For many of my students, perfectionism is a problem. And I wouldn't say it disappears completely when working on an assignment in this manner, but it certainly helps if they are reminded all the time, it doesn't really matter what you're going to make because it will be destructed anyway. And as the assignment progresses, some of them get really into the performative aspects of this assignment, like the destruction part, how to destruct it, how to film it, how to use their body language to make their message even bigger. And some of them work in a more controlled medium, like this student who was working in stop motion technique, which gave her the opportunity to also tell a bit of a story around her anger. And she had made, she had chose animal abuse for a theme. And she had made a bad guy out of plastic bottle and wool. And he is carrying a miniature plastic bag. And she has also made, she has also used the same plastic bag in real size and made kittens. And so the story was that the bad guy was going to throw the kittens in the river. And in the end of her movie, we see her destroying the bad guy with her foot. I have learned a lot working on this assignment with my groups. For example, that having them smash glass Nutella bottles in the classroom isn't really a great idea, despite of the protective installation that this student had built. Also wouldn't recommend having them set things on fire. But things that worked really well were smashing things, stomping, riding over it with your bike, pouring water over it, things like that. Something I would like to share with you is that every time when I do this assignment, I feel quite a bit of fear and doubt, because anger is just not a very welcome emotion in schools. And if we talk about it, it's also always in the kind of anger control kind of way. And we just want to get rid of it as soon as possible and not make a big thing out of expressing it. And that's exactly what I'm doing in this assignment. And I'm always afraid what will happen. Will I bring out some kind of terrible aggression in these kids and turning them into killing destructive creatures that will romanticize their darkest emotions? Well, I can reassure you that hasn't happened yet. What has happened is that I learned so much about the things that irritate them and the things that make them angry and the things that they really care about. And also has been a great way of introducing them to artworks that are a bit less traditional. So performance art, installation art, things like that. And also, I hope that they take away from this assignment that it's okay to be angry sometimes and that it's normal and we all have these feelings. And we can try to turn them into something, into a communication that's maybe funny or thought-provoking, or maybe even artistic. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shteda. That was awesome. Such cool ideas. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Hello again. My name's Clark, and I live in the USA. And this prompt is inspired by Erwin Wurm. He's an Austrian artist who I'm sure you know about already. I'd like to preface this by saying, obviously these ideas are heavily borrowed from Erwin Wurm. And also I am certainly not the first art educator to do a project inspired by Erwin Wurm, but I'm happy to tell you about the things we've learned through our experience. So first, maybe I'll introduce you a little bit to Erwin Wurm and his work, just really briefly. So he's a contemporary artist. He was born in 1954. He's primarily interested in sculpture, as you can see here. Here's a saggy bicycle. Here is a fat car and a fat bus. Here's a droopy boat. Here's a house teetering on an edge. For our purposes, though, I think his work that is more participatory is more relevant to our conversation here. He has a project, an ongoing project that has been going on since the 80s called 1 Minute Sculptures. And this project would actually comfortably sit in the pages of the Wicked Arts assignment book. The basic idea here is that he makes a drawing, and the drawing acts as a set of instructions for a viewer. It's an invitation as well as a set of instructions. And if a viewer chooses, they can, oh, let's see, let's go back. My computer's kind of going slow here. If the viewer chooses, they can participate in the work and engage in the work and become the work. They can become the sculpture. Let's see. So this is a little bit of a strange concept for some of my high school students, that the viewer can activate the sculpture or become it. It's anticipated that the participant will hold the position for about a minute, but Wurm has a really nebulous sense of time. He has said that a minute could mean any brief period of time, so a few seconds or whatever the participant chooses. And when the participant walks away, the sculpture no longer exists except in memory and photographs. And I really like that concept a lot. These sculptures are not meant to last. And this is a pretty unconventional idea in the realm of sculpture. And some of my high school students had a really hard time processing this form of conceptual sculpture that leans into its own impermanence. And many of my students have this expectation that sculptures and monuments need to last for generations. And so it requires a bit of a mental shift to put these fleeting event structures into the same category of, heroic monuments that we see. I'd like to take a small detour here, a detour that I take my high school students on to kind of explore this realm of temporary sculpture. Charles Ray is an early artist who was thinking about some of these ideas. I really like this work, these two plank pieces. There's a curator named Simon Baker who wrote about Charles Ray. He says this. He says, "It is only in the work, which is a photograph, that plank piece exists as a sculpture. Outside the confines of this time-based image, Ray and his work literally fall to the ground in a heap." Baker continues, "The impossibility of duration is established from the outset. It doesn't matter whether the pose appears to have lasted beyond the snap of a camera shutter. Its ambition was never to last." I think that's really nice. That curator, Simon Baker, he calls these types of works liquid monuments. And I think that's a really, really lovely turn of phrase, liquid monument. The curator, Simon Baker, invites us to consider some of the dimensions that constitute a more traditional idea of sculpture, like monoliths or public monuments, for example. He writes, "Conceptually at least, the total sculpture would include everything from the pressure to build it, the consequent maquettes and trial installations, to its inauguration, and then complaints about it, repairs, photographs of it, and eventually its demise. Of course, statuary always has a relationship with time, whether or not it acknowledges that or leans into that. But there's always an end for statues. Sometimes they're slowly weathered by natural elements, like these here. Sometimes they're dismantled for the value of their material, like in this next photo here. The computer is not loading. Oh, here we go. This photo is really interesting, actually. This photo was taken during the occupation of Paris. And there were piles of bronze sculptures that were melted down to form ammunition and artillery shells during World War II. So this is one way that statues can meet their demise. And then here, obviously, sometimes during ground swells of societal change, monuments can be forcefully removed for the antiquated, problematic, and oppressive histories that they represent. Like here, where a racist monument in Bristol was thrown into the harbor. Hooray. So all of these dimensions of traditional sculpture also exist in this plank piece by Charles Ray, but they're rendered down to their most essential elements. What differs is Charles Ray's intentionality. His work embraces brevity, ephemerality, and it has a playful sense of its own self-destruction. And I really like, I think Erwin Worm's work has that exact same thing. Those elements are present here as well, but there's even more at play with Erwin Worm's work. And it's the element of participation that sets this work apart. So here are a few photos from Erwin Worm and his 1-minute sculpture projects. Individual photographs feature images of people, anonymous participants, performers, and curators engaging in unconventional and sometimes physically challenging interactions with everyday objects. When these everyday objects, such as sweaters, shoes, and chairs, finish their time in Worm's exhibitions, he returns them wherever they came from, often recycling centers and thrift stores. These objects then go back into circulation and begin functioning as everyday objects again. It's kind of like the inverse of a ready-made, where these art objects that were extolled on a pedestal in a gallery move back into their civilian life. I think that's a really cool idea. These images, let's see. Oh, these images that remain, or the images that remain, often feature unusual contortions and illogical still lifes that are both humorous and provocative. Another key element here is the deliberate awkwardness and discomfort of these positions. I went to the breakout session with Christopher Lynn about taking something and making it worse. He talked about leaning into things that are awkward and not running away from them. And I think Worm's work does that as well. Erwin Worm said something funny. He said that by nature, we are all awkward and we are all ridiculous. I'll skip this video just so we have a little bit more time. So Erwin Worm says this. He says, the basic question stimulating these works was if terms like ridiculousness and awkwardness could become part of sculpture. Could they possibly gain sculptural character or sculptural qualities? So this awkwardness becomes both the modality and the material, the subject and the object for his participatory liquid monuments. I think that is a really cool idea. So I tell my high school students that their objective is to make a sculpture of awkwardness using awkwardness as the material itself. So the prompt that I use with my high school students is to make a sculpture that only lasts 1 minute. And here are some of the examples of their work. So I teach AP art and photography at a high school. And I did this project at the first day of one of our classes. And it provided some opportunities for students to interact and overlap in ways that were a little bit more unconventional. And they really did lean into these kind of more awkward elements here. This student on the left named Charlie actually got his head stuck in the ladder for this photo. It was stuck for about 5 minutes and then we eventually were able to pry him out, but it was scary for a few minutes, but he's okay now. I had a sweater that I brought to class and I took it off and it immediately became fodder for this project. It is much baggier now than it was before, but I don't mind. Here are a few more. These are more recent. These actually just took place last week. At my high school, we're still teaching in person despite the pandemic, which is kind of a strange thing. And so we photographed each other while wearing masks and trying to remain socially distant. Let's see, my computer seems to be going really slow here. So it's kind of skipped a few slides, which is a bummer. Let's go back. Oh, here we go. So there's actually a student in this paper roll right here. It kind of became like an acrobatic expose in some ways. Students just kind of began showing off their different bodily tricks that they could do. And I really like this one. I don't know. So that his sweater right here says virginity rocks. And I don't know if that's a thing anywhere else outside of Utah in the USA. It's a very strange thing. I see lots of sweaters that say that for some reason. Anyways, so you now have an opportunity yourself to try and make your own 1-minute sculpture. And so what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to look around you for the objects at hand. Could be chairs, books, stickers, markers. And I would like you to try to create your own 1-minute sculpture. So how this will work is I'll put up a timer for 3 minutes, and I'll let you use that 3 minutes to collect your materials. And when that 3 minutes is up, then I'd like everybody to share their screens and share their 1-minute sculptures. There will also be a hashtag at the end if you are able to take a photo of yourself making this 1-minute sculpture. So I will start the timer right now. 3 minutes on the clock, and ready, set, go. Good luck. If you can hear me, you have about 1 more minute.
I'm sorry, I have to go feed my baby.
You're okay. Five seconds left. Okay, that is time. Very nice, everybody. I'm going to try and take a screenshot. Everybody get in your best pose. Very nice. Very, very impressive. If you, oh my goodness. Elvira Stein, you made a whole mask. Very, very nice. That is very impressive, everyone. Good job. Oh my word. There are so many good things happening here. If there's any way for you to take a screenshot of yourself, please go ahead and do that now. I'm taking a big screenshot of everyone. Oh my word. These are excellent. Very, very nice. Let me try one more screenshot. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Very nice. Thank you, everyone. Very, very good. Okay, so because we, these are excellent, everyone. Thank you. Because of one presenter not being able to make it today, we do have a little bit of extra time. Emil, you asked me if I would share a quick sample of a second project. Is that's okay if I do that still?
Yeah, maybe we can, I saw a few questions. Maybe we can do them first and see what happens.
Perfect. Yeah, let's move on to the Q&A, and if I do have more material and other.
Yeah, you have a really wow follow-up. So let's see. I saw that Linda had a question for Sterre, and it was a really quick one, I think, about did your students do the work at home or in school?
I had them choose. So if they like, they can do it at school, but not everything is possible at school, of course. So then there are some limitations, but they can also do it at home. And some of them just really most of them really wanted to burn something. So I didn't allow that in school. So then they had to do it at home.
Okay. And Jorge, you also had a quite extensive question for Sterre, I saw. Maybe you can just speak up, use the microphone.
I was just struck by the comment that you made about how you were feeling very cautious or nervous about whether or not you were going to ignite in your students something that perhaps you wouldn't be able to bring back in or contain back in, you know, and you use the term romanticize, you know, romanticize these notions or these feelings that they have, which I totally understand. And I don't disagree with you, but I also thought it got me to think how many other things we romanticize in schools that are could be equally destructive, but we sort of pass them off as good things, right? Like consumption and the sort of meritocracy, or like trying to climb to the top always, which are things that we talk about in school all the time as very, very good things most of the time. Yeah. So anyway, I thought it was more a comment than anything. I just wanted to say that it's so valuable that you're doing that work with them within that space where you can have those critical discussions with them. And I see it as no less harmful than some of the other things that we do.
Thank you, Jorge, for the beautiful comments. Yes, there were some things in the newspapers lately that had actually got me thinking, like of course, the thing that happened with the French teacher, just aggression in general. And every year, again, I think, maybe this is not a good year for it because there's just so many bad things going on in the world, and maybe I shouldn't add anything to it, and maybe I should just teach them how to deal with their emotions properly. But every time when I think about it, I realize that dealing with your emotions and just not acknowledging them and just pushing them away is really not the same thing. And dealing with your emotions always starts by acknowledging them. So that's something I try to do. And I think it's very interesting that you say about consumption and always trying to be the best and things like that. It could actually also be very good starting points for art, I think. Thanks.
Yeah. Clark, can I squeeze in this question for Andrea from myself? Yes. Andrea, maybe I missed it, but we're a big fan of your work, we can say here from this side of the table. But I was wondering, the students that you did these little assignments with, are they going to be artists or artist teachers or teachers or something?
artists. We only have department for fine art and design, so we don't have this specific departments only for the teachers. So they are, I teach students who are enrolled in sculpture, painting, photography, new media. So I teach for every department. I have 80 students per year, and they are changing. Yeah, I'm only teaching for the first year. So they are from different backgrounds.
Yeah. Like in the general year that we have in the Netherlands too. Yeah. And do you think they will use these strategies that you're actually learning them, maybe in, are they going to do something with it after your class?
I hope so, but the older generation of teachers told me that I have to be more serious, and this is not the way how to teach elements of art and theory of form. When I came to teach 3 years ago, I totally changed the curricula by using these ready-mades, and I still struggle with it, and I still thinking about it. Is it a good strategy or not? Because I give them lots of freedom, and I do the opposite of teaching them how to portray the real thing and to be technically more precise. So I hope that in a couple of years they will come back to me and realize that they can use it.
Thank you. I didn't see any other questions in the chat. So people, what shall we do? A little bit of Clark more, or is there a question? You can just speak up. Clark has a really nice project, I can tell you.
I have a question actually for Andrea. So those home workouts that you've done, is that a recent development? Did you start that as a response to the COVID pandemic and people being locked down and quarantined?
Yeah, no, I started when I started to teach at the academy 3 years ago. I needed something to freshen up this lecture of theory of form. So also to keep me interested in the lectures, I implemented it as a way of exercising something that you have to learn and teach by definition, the theory of form, and to play around with it. So it started as I started to teach.
Awesome, thank you.
But now it is for sure. We are already teaching remotely online, so I totally see the meaning of it. Yeah.
Okay. I saw another question of Gina. I think it's for Sterre. Gina, do you want to ask it yourself?
Yeah, but my voice is not so good.
We can understand you.
Okay. I wonder how the interaction is between the students when they are performing their anger management. How do you say it? Anger control.
Nice question, thank you. Because my students, most of them have autism, and for most of them it's very hard to do nothing or to just wait. So that was actually quite a challenge. So I try to practice with them a little bit of a performance actually before we do the filming part of the exercise, and we try things like a little bit like performers exercises where they have to each do a little thing and then wait for the others to do it, so that in the end when we are actually doing the filming they can wait for each other and wait for their turn and be a part of it at the same time. And they all film one of each other's performances. So that's how we do it.
Thank you.
Well, you want to do it on Monday, you wrote, Gina, so is that
enough maybe myself or with my students.
That's great. Yeah.
Clark, what do you think? 4 minutes left.
Yeah, I could do a rapid fire. Would you like a few bonus projects?
Let's do it. Let's do it, man.
Okay, let's do it. Okay, we have 4 minutes. Okay, here's a hashtag, by the way, if you want to upload any of your photos, 1 minute sculpture. Okay, so this is from another project that I did with Jorge and his conceptual art and teaching project. He did a symposium a few months ago. So here's a prompt that I didn't submit to the Wicked Arts assignment book, but I wish I had. So the prompt is to take a photo of nothing. There are 9 modalities that I created for this essay, 9 ways to photograph nothing. There are obviously so many more than that, but I kind of articulated 9. So number 1, remember the French poet Paul Verlaine's treatise for nuance, only nuance. Empty your frame, dismiss any prominent features. Treat this as an exercise in subtraction and deletion. Number 2, oh no, my computer is going slow. Oh, create a photograph that is not a photograph of by strategically outwitting or fortuitously failing the medium. Exclude the subject, the camera, the negative, and so on. Assign light a performative instead of an interpretive function. Number 3, disorient your viewer. Omit horizon lines and anything that could give the viewer their bearings. Lean into ambiguity. Number 4, enclose yourself in a small, bland space. Step into nothingness and create imagery inside. Number 5, blatantly violate camera protocol. Overexpose or underexpose, miss the focus, damage the negative, or corrupt the image file. Instead of an image that says this, make an image that says not this. Number 6, embrace decay. Let photos become nothing. Treat photographic prints as sculptural objects that are meant to be destroyed. Allow your prints to be folded, faded, soaked, dissolved, crushed, torn, buried, etc. Number 7, photograph something that cannot be seen. Number 8, photograph something that only you know is there. And number 9, photograph something that you hope is there. So those were all photographs from my high school students, by the way, who took those over the course of quarantine when school shut down last March. So those are 3 modalities for photographing nothing. Because I was nervous about not having enough time because of one speaker leaving, I also included one final prompt here as well. And we have 1 minute. I'll show you this. Well, actually, I'll show you this quickly. Typographic intervention, using physical letterforms to subvert a public space in a positive way. I had my high school students use letterforms to intervene. This is a light projection on the side of a jail, vinyl lettering, grass, fabric. Yeah, anyways, I think that for the sake of time, I will stop there. But thank you so much, everyone, for your thoughts and your comments. Andrea and Shteda, wow, wow, wow. Such incredible projects, and I'm really excited to spend more time with these. So thank you, everyone, so much for your time and your thoughts. That was really, really wonderful.
And thank you for this last presentation. These are cool. I was doing print screens all the time.
Me too.
We're recording everything, and
you always forget.
And those last 2 ones will be the entries in our next book, I hope.
Super.
Thank you, Clark.
Are there plans for a second book, Emil?
Let's discuss that later, Clark. But, yeah, there are. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. I see you back in 19 seconds in the General Assembly, and we'll wrap it up. See you later.
Thank you.
Ciao.